Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to cross the Øresund once again, and we're going to go back to Copenhagen in Denmark and revisit a brewery that's featured on the channel many times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years, quite a few different styles, but I think it's still most definitely fair to say that this brewery are best known for their different New England hazy IPAs. The one that we're going to have a look at today is one of their latest releases through Systembolaget over here in Sweden, and it is supposed to be a pretty nice beer actually. We've had some very nice beers from this brewery in recent times, I have to say too. So quite curious to see what this one has in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one. So yeah, for this review then we are going to head to Herlev in the northwest of the city, and we're going to have a look at another beer from Gamma Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Radial. It comes in at 8.2% ABV, and they're describing this one as a double IPA. Interestingly, on Untappd, it's listed simply as double IPA. It's not listed as New England or hazy, whatever, double IPA. And I note that it also has only wheat it has wheat and oats in the malt base though, I should say. So yeah, it seems as if the malt base is a little bit more kind of New Englandy. So we'll just need to see exactly how this one turns out actually. But yeah, we've had some really nice New England hazies from Gamma Brewing Company over the years, so I do have high hopes for this one. But yeah, this beer was released as part of the local Småskalig assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden for March of 2022. I believe the exact release date this month was the 7th. So yeah, we always get a few nice Danish things through the local releases actually. But let's crack on with this one then and see how we go. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Gamma Brewing Company before, and you will no doubt see more added to that list in the near future. This is one of the breweries I always look out for when I go over to Copenhagen. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Danish beers that I've reviewed for you, and that's being added to quite often because I live in Skåne in the south of Sweden. I go to Copenhagen often and I love the Danish beers, so it just makes sense. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then to tell you a little bit about Gamma Brewing Company once again. So Gamma Brewing Company, as I mentioned to you earlier, are based in Herlev, which is in the northwestern part of Copenhagen on Sjælland in the eastern part of Denmark, and the company was founded back in 2015 by 4 friends who were bartenders in the various beer bars around the city. But this group often used to talk about how it would be cool to have their own brewery one day, but little did they know that opportunity was coming sooner than they thought. So in the early days they took in another co-owner, so the team at the brewery is Jakob, Anders, Jesper, Koi and Nick, and they all had a little bit of homebrewing experience, but 2 of them had worked in Åsnegården bar, and they actually went on to purchase the former Stronzo brewery in Gorløse to the northwest of the city as well, which was what would become Ølkollektivet. And one of the co-owners in the brewery as well is also a co-owner of Mig Ølsnegården bar, which is in Aarhus as well. But they were invited to join Ølkollektivet, and they got a good deal on a 20 hectolitre tank, and they started the brewery without having had any experience of running their own business, so quite a risk. But it did go very well for them, and they expanded twice when they were in Ølkollektivet, and at maximum they were producing around 500 hectolitres there, so about 500,000 litres of beer per year at maximum in Ølkollektivet. But Ølkollektivet, of course, has been home to a few different breweries. The main ones were, of course, Åsnegården, Dry and Bitter and Gamma Brewing Company. Åsnegården used to brew the Bad Seed beers under contract before they got their own facility near Aalborg on Öland, the Danish mainland. And I think Rooster and Ghost have also brewed there at some points as well actually, but Ghost of course are now brewing their beers at Amar Bryghus in Kastrup. Yeah, in July of 2020 Gamma announced that they were going to move to a new brewery in Herlev. They worked at building up this facility over the next few months, and then in February of 2021 they produced their last beers at Il Collectiva, and then the following month, in March of 2021, they produced their first beers in Herlev, and they've been kind of producing a far larger volume up there as well, from what I understand. But as of March 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced about 160 different kinds of beer, according to Untappd, and like I mentioned earlier, this brewery is known mainly for its different kinds of New England hazy IPA. But we have had some very good West Coast IPAs from them. They do Imperial Stouts every so often. And I think we've had a West Coast IPA from them actually. They do a random beer every so often. One of the more recent reviews we did was actually of a Rauch beer, which was quite interesting. It was quite like the Spezial Rauch beer from Bamberg, which was cool. But yeah, as I say, that is all I can really tell you about Gamma Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's get on and have a little look at this beer itself then. So yeah, just to let you have a little look at the artwork on this one before we open up. As you can see, it's got one of these lovely kind of pattern things that you'll quite often get from Gamma Brewing. I still love the kind of join on the can on these things. Of course, this brewery is named after gamma waves, very powerful radiation. There you can see Gamma Brewing Company, Radial, and it tells you a little bit about the beer here as well. So yeah, this one contains wheat and oat malt. So like I said earlier, this beer is listed on Untappd as being just a double IPA rather than a New England double IPA. Not sure exactly why, because yeah, it does contain barley, wheat and oat malt, and it's got the hops in this one are Zappa, Idaho 7 and Mosaic. So yeah, we know Idaho 7 and Mosaic quite well. Idaho 7, I think all three of these hops actually are American. So Idaho 7 is usually about 14% alpha acid. It gives you a lovely kind of soft, apricot-y, pineapple-y kind of quality. And then Mosaic is about 14% alpha acid, and it has a nice kind of juicy tangerine type quality. But yeah, I did copy my notes from Zappa. I think we actually had Zappa in another Gamma beer a few months back. But Zappa is an American hop developed by CLS Farms in Yakima. It's named after Frank Zappa, of course. It gives you between 4 to 8% alpha acid, which is kind of similar to some of the New Zealand hops actually, and it's supposed to give you a mango, passion fruit and mint aroma with a bit of pine. But I do remember getting a few minty flavours out of it last time, come to think of it, so we need to see if that shows up in this one. But yeah, 440 milliliter can this, and I think I paid 55 Swedish kroner for this, so that is roughly €5.50, £5 sterling, I guess somewhere in the region of like $6.50, $7 American, something like that. But yeah, you'll get this beer for about 50 Danish kroner if you go over to the likes of Kiosk and Beer Hive in Copenhagen. Two shops that I really do recommend that you check out. That's where I get most of my Danish stuff actually. Plain silver top on the can. Let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. The Radial, 8.2% double IPA from Gamma Brewing Company in Herlev in the northwest of Copenhagen. Let's do this. Very curious about this. Although I know this brewery do some very, very good New England, so yeah, I kind of know what to expect. But yeah, Gamma are quite good at showing you the different types of flavours and things like that you can get out of these. But yeah, anyway, there we go. Let me just line that up again so that my OCD is happy. So yeah, before the head disappears on this one then, this is kind of poured exactly as you expect of a New England. It's poured with maybe about 1.33 or 1.25 of a frothy, I would say kind of cream coloured head. You can see it's got a mix of medium and small bubbles in it there. Quite a bubbly head, this one, I have to say. But yeah, in terms of colour, this one is quite interesting. So I would say that this beer, it's poured a kind of, what would we say? It's quite a murky sort of yellow colour, this one. It looks a little bit more orangey to you guys on the camera, actually, I think. But this one is quite a nice kind of murky yellow. It looks a bit like a kind of pineapple and mango type juice actually. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on 1, the type of malts that you use. That goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar is caramelised, thus you get a darker colour of beer. New England IPAs tend to have about a 90-minute wort boil, roughly in that kind of region. Any barrel aging that you do, any adjuncts that you put in can affect the colour of the beer too, but that doesn't really apply to New England IPAs. But yeah, this one Does look pretty nice, I have to say. A nice kind of dark murky yellow. So a mix of a kind of pineapple and mango sort of juice, this one. I always like comparing New England IPAs to different fruit juices. That's just what the appearance reminds me of. But yeah, this one looks good. In terms of the level of haze, in this beer, this one, I would say it's quite, in terms of the level of haze with this one, it's quite impressive actually. It's not the soupiest and gloopiest that I've come across, but it seems to be one of the soupier and gloopier ones I've come across from Gamma Brewing, come to think of it. So remember, the haze depends on the oat content, wheat content, and to a degree the yeast strain as well. And yeah, it varies a little bit. It does vary a little bit from brewery to brewery, recipe to recipe, and so on. There's not really a rule about that in the sense. But in terms of what you'd expect from the appearance of a New England double IPA, this one I think it quite obviously is a New England double IPA. I don't think we really need to say any more about it. It looks the part. It certainly looks the part. So let's move on then and have a wee look at the aroma before we taste this beer. Oh yeah, that is very, very nice. So on the first impression of this one, it's actually a very kind of smooth and juicy New England IPA. This one, you can smell that it's a wee bit boozier as well. This is one of the sweeter ones I think I've come across in the malt base from Gamma Brewing in quite a wee while actually. So yeah, it's got quite a smooth but slightly sweet malt base to it. The green component strikes me as being quite grassy, and the fruitiness of this beer is kind of it's got a quite creamy fruitiness to it actually, which I very much enjoy. So it gets a thumbs up from me in that regard. But yeah, I do like how this beer goes about its business in that sense. Yeah, aroma wise, this is very, very nice. So yeah, what can we say about this one? I think that gives you a basic summary, a first impression of the aroma. But let's break this down and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. So the backbone of the beer, of course, you get a little bit of that fresh kind of white bread crust in there, but there's a lot of like fluffy, fresh white bread in it as well. You can smell that straight away. You can smell a little bit of the wheaty character, just kind of thickening it up. I don't really get much bitiness out in the back of the nose from the wheat. Sometimes you can get that, but the more that I smell of this beer, I think the oats start to come out a little bit more as well. There's one or two little kind of crackery, woody notes coming out of this one. But yeah, a little bit of bread crust, a soft, fluffy white bread in there, and then a bit of a kind of thicker, wheaty note to the beer as well. So I really like, I do really like how this goes together. Yeah, so yeah, a little bit of bread crust, as I say, soft white bread character, bit of a thicker wheaty note in there, and then you've also got the oats sitting on top of that. And I think this one is actually quite fresh. This is one of the things you always have to be careful about with imported IPAs into Sweden, because they can sit in the warehouse in Systembolaget for quite a little while. And that's one of the big problems. But this one actually smells okay. So you can smell the kind of creaminess in the oats in this. As I've said before, for me, the level of creaminess that you get from the oats is usually an indicator of how fresh your New England IPA is. So bear that in mind. But for me, yeah, this one's got a lovely little bit of smoothness. It does have a lovely little bit of smoothness and kind of freshness to it, which is great. You can smell a bit of sweetness in there. But I do actually get quite a little bit of that Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy type thing coming out of this beer. So I really, really enjoy that actually. Yeah. Aroma wise, this one is very, very nice. On the malty side of things. But yeah, it does strike me as being one of the kind of more bready and sweeter New Englands that I've come across from Gamma Brewing over the last little while actually. So keep that in mind with this one. Keep that in mind with this beer. I think the malt base on this is very nice. But let's focus on the hoppy side of things then. Let's see how we get on with that. So the green component for me, there's a little bit of earthiness to it, absolutely. And that's going to come from the mosaic, I would think. Remember, New England IPAs rely on late addition and dry hopping. Late addition gives you a little bit of bitterness, lots of flavour and aroma. Dry hopping gives you completely flavour and aroma. Early addition hopping is the one that gives you the big bitterness. West Coast IPAs have that along with the other two. New England IPAs tend to focus on the late and dry hopping. But yeah, the green component of this is nice. A big, bright, grassy character to it. A little bit of floral note, but yeah, the way that this goes together is very nice on the green component. Lovely grassy character, a little bit of floral note, and a wee bit of earthiness. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together, I think, is very, very nice. So yeah, on the fruity side of things, it's pretty good as well. It's interesting as well. I'm noticing that I'm not picking up the kind of I'm not picking up so much in the way of the minty character out of this that I was expecting from the Zappa. So we'll see if that comes out in the flavour. But yeah, on the fruity side of things, it's quite, it is quite well balanced. I mean, I do get a nice big juicy mango out of this one, and you can smell the softer apricot. So the Idaho 7, I think, is coming out for me really, really nicely. But I get quite a lot of orange out of this, and I think that's going to come from the Zappa. That'll be coming from the Zappa and from the Mosaic. It smells like a bit more of an oily, zesty orange, kind of like you get from Amarillo, rather than that lighter tangerine that we've had from Mosaic in the past. But yeah, fruity side of things for me, juicy mango, softer apricot, a little bit of pineapple, and then you've also got that kind of orangey, tangerine sort of vibe coming out of the beer. But yeah, I really like how the aroma of this one kind of goes together. So it gets a big thumbs up from me in that sense. Yeah, I think it's a nice smelling beer, this one. As I always say, take a wee bit of time to just ponder over the aroma before you get stuck into it. But yeah, let's have a wee look at this one then and see how we go. As I always say, just take a bit of time to enjoy the smell. That's always half the experience when it comes to craft beers and whiskies and sakes and stuff like that. But yeah, let's have a taste of this. So yeah, this one is the Radial, an 8.2% double IPA, quite obviously a New England double. Don't know why it's listed simply as double IPA, from Gamma Brewing Company in Herlev in the northwest of Copenhagen. Let's get stuck into this one. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Yeah, that's pretty nice. First impression of the flavour is actually quite bready and a little bit more yeasty, but it does have the sweetness that I was picking up in the aroma as well. This is nice, but I mean, I wouldn't expect anything less from Gamma Brewing Company. We've had many, many beers from these guys over the years. So, yeah, this one, it's just a really nice, smooth, and just easy drinking beer. This one, it's stupidly easy to drink for an 8.2%. Yeah, I don't know if it's just me getting used to them or if these are actually getting more and more easy drinking in nature. But yeah, I find that this beer is it's ridiculously easy just to tan these things these days. It's mental. But yeah, this is a lovely, very smooth, very creamy New England IPA. It's got the smooth breadiness in there. The green component has a bit more floral character, but it's quite grassy as I was picking up, and the fruity notes are kind of tropical and smooth too. I like this one, so it's a thumbs up from me, absolutely. So I think the place to start with this one, then, as always, is the middle third of the palate. But this is definitely worth trying if you get the chance, and I'm glad the condition of this one is better than some of the other Gamma ones that we've had in recent times. This still has a lot of the creaminess to it, which I do like. So yeah, in terms of the pardon me, in terms of the malty side of things, then we'll start in that middle third of the palate. So the base of the middle third of the palate, you can feel there's a wee touch of like a Jacob's cream crackery sort of thing, and a wee bit of bread crust. That forms the backbone of the beer. On top of that, of course, you get that more kind of fluffy white bready note in there. I do actually get a little hint of a more greeniness in there. There's almost a wee hint of a kind of like wholemeal brown bready sort of vibe to the beer. So yeah, a little mix of that in there. But on top of that, you can feel the wheat just thickening out. You can feel the wheat just thickening out this whole beer, and that's quite interesting as well. So, yeah, This one, as I would say, it's actually, it does feel as if it's quite balanced between the oats and the barley malt, but the wheat's playing a role as well. It's a lot more, it seems a lot more kind of balanced in the three malty components in the flavour than it did in the aroma. And as I've said before, for me there's 6 elements to think about with a New England IPA. There's the yeasty character, the sort of rye leaning grainy side of things. Those two of course are a bit more prominent in American brewed New Englands. Then you've got wheatiness, oatiness, the barley malt bready side of things, and then the sweet character, and those 4 are more seen in the European New Englands. Most of the European New Englands are a bit more akin to the treehouse oaty ones or the Trillium wheaty ones. So yeah, we don't get so many of the kind of farmhousey, kind of rye, grainy sort of ones that you get from the likes of Alchemist and so on in the US. But yeah, this one definitely is a little bit more. It's kind of balanced between the barley malt and the oats, I think, and the wheat does play a role. But yeah, it's an interesting beer. It really is quite interesting for sure. So, yeah, on top of the kind of thickening wheaty layer, you get the nice oaty creaminess, and the oats. The oats are quite, as I say, the oats are a little bit more dense. Yeah, you get that nice kind of dense oaty character in there. You can feel it's a bit thicker down the kind of middle line of your tongue, and it just, as it spreads out toward the edges of the palate, it gets a little bit sweeter, but also a little bit drier. But yeah, it still has that kind of smooth creaminess in there. But sitting on top of that, you have a more, as we say, you have a little bit of a more, you've got a little bit of sweeter character coming out of this one. But you can feel the booziness in this beer a little bit. I always used to say that back in the day, it was difficult to go above 8% with a New England's double IPA without adding a bit of sweetness in the malt base. And this one does have a little bit of that sweetness. So in the middle of the palate, you can feel there's a little circle there, and it's like a Werther's Original kind of butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing. But it's not the sweetest actually. This one really leans towards being a little bit more kind of oaty and creamy in terms of its malt base. So I do quite like that about this. It's kind of I noticed that in recent years that the New England IPAs have gotten a little bit sweeter, especially the more kind of boozy ones, and you're getting more triples and even quadruple New Englands these days, which are quite interesting. But yeah, malty wise, this one's quite nice, but definitely the more you drink of it, pardon me, the more kind of creamy and oaty it gets. But let's look at the back third of the palate then. So the border region between middle third and back third of your palate, again, you get a little bit of a kind of bready build up there, a wee bit more bread crust. The base of that back third of the palate is a little bit more, the base of the back third of the palate is a wee bit more kind of, you get a bit more of that kind of grainy bread crusty character out of it. Of course, on top of that, there's a little, you get the white bready layer, and there you get a wee bit more of the kind of brown bready character as well. It feels a little bit more grainy. Then on top of that, you can feel the thickening wheat just sitting on top of it. So I like how that goes together. Yeah. So, yeah, I think I do notice that, as I always say, you get more bitter flavours toward the back of the palate, the sweeter flavours further forward, but the more kind of grainy, bitter flavours that you get out of this one, the more kind of grainy, bitter flavours that you get are a little bit like, they are, as you would say, it's just a little bit more like a kind of brown bread thing. But then on top of all that, you get the yeasty character out of this one, and the yeast is quite interesting because it has this slightly more farmhousey, crackery sort of thing to it. So you do get a little bit of that. On top of the back third of the palate, you're getting all of these other elements coming out of it, which I really like. So yeah. So, yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is very, very nice in a sense. So yeah, a little bit of bread, as I say, grainy bread crust underneath, a sort of thicker white and brown bready character, a wee bit of the wheat thickening out. The wheat does have a wee bit of bitiness in the back of the palate, incidentally. Then you've got that kind of yeasty character that's a bit more, it's like a brown bread, like a more grainy brown bready character with a bit of cracker and wood and stuff like that in it. But the back third of your palate, the flavour is definitely taller, and as you come further forward, it just condenses down and squashes together a little bit. So yeah, I do quite like how the malty side of this beer goes about its business. It is very, very nice. But yeah, definitely an interesting beer, this one, for sure. I like how that all how that goes together from the malty side of things. Let's focus on the hoppy part of it. Back corners of the palate, on the green component, you definitely have a bit of earthiness there. That's mosaic, of course. As you come further forward, it actually starts to give you that nice kind of floral, aromatic sort of thing. You do get a wee hint of the mintiness from the Zappa there, particularly in the middle of the sides of your palate. But on the front corners of your tongue, it's definitely a bit more of a kind of floral note there. But round the front curve of the palate, it's a little bit lighter and zesty and grassy. And I think out of the hops, that's most likely to come from the mosaic and the Zappa, to be honest with you. Idaho 7 I don't remember being too zesty, and it's kind of grassy component, if you like. But yeah, the green component for me is quite bright, and I do enjoy that about it. But yeah, the Zappa certainly giving you that wee minty edge there, which is quite interesting and quite unusual. It makes the beer feel quite fresh too. But yeah, front third of your palate and the fruity side of things then. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of a kind of bready build up there, a wee bit of bread crust in the base of that front third of your palate is a wee bit of a more kind of smooth, white bready sort of thing. You can feel a little bit of the oaty character in this one as well. So yeah, the way that this goes together is pretty nice. Yeah. So yeah, the oaty smoothness in this one. Yeah, the way that the oaty smoothness goes together and the base there is quite interesting, but you do get a wee bit of a kind of woody, crackery kind of note underneath that too. But sitting on top of that, you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. So let's focus on that. At the back of the front third of the palate, there's definitely a wee bit of that stronger passion fruity note, absolutely. So yeah, as I say, quite a bit of a stronger passion fruit in there. But as you move further forward from that, it gives you a kind of juicy, mango-y quality. And yeah, the mango's going to come both from the Idaho 7 and the Zappa. I think the Zappa gives you, it's supposed to give you a bit of a mango-y kind of orangey sort of thing. So yeah, there's quite a wee bit of that in there. But as you move further forward toward the dead centre of that, as you move forward toward the kind of dead centre of that middle third of your palate, it has got a wee bit of a more kind of you start to get a real zesty vibe in there, which is interesting. But I get quite a bit of an oily pineapple for sure. That lingers into the aftertaste. But yeah, as you move into the front half of that front third of your palate, then absolutely you get a sort of more oily. You get a little bit of a more kind of oily, tangerine-y, orangey sort of thing coming out of this one. So yeah, I really like how it all goes together in that sense. Yeah, a nice kind of tangerine-y, orangey character just lingering there into the aftertaste, and a wee bit of a slightly stronger orange. The orangey character you get out of this actually is a little bit more reminiscent of the old big zesty oily Amarillo than the lighter tangerine mosaic that we've had in recent times. But yeah, this is a nice New England double. It goes together very, very well. Well balanced in the fruits actually, and I do get more and more of that kind of minty character from the Zappa lingering there in the aftertaste too. But yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the flavour of this beer. It's very, very nice. Let's round off with a look at the mouthfeel then. So for me, it's top end and mid-bodied, this beer. Carbonation is very smooth. It really is a very creamy New England IPA, this one. I like that about it. And yeah, it goes together. It does go together pretty solidly, I have to say. It gets more and more creamy the more that you drink of it. In terms of IBUs, I think this one has a wee bit more bitterness to it. Maybe a 40, maybe 50 IBU at a push, this one. But I think that might be some of the mintiness from the Zappa that's kind of given that impression. But yeah, the green component has a little bit more kind of pungency about it. the malty yeasty side of things. It's got a bit of graininess to it, a bit of smoothness, and a wee bit of sweetness. But I find this one a little bit more kind of. It has got a little bit more of a kind of savoury, bready kind of character to it. I think that's fair to say, to be honest with you. There's not too much in the way of sweetness to this beer, and the fruity side of it is a bit more kind of tropical, and it is a little bit more kind of tropical, and how would we say? It leans more towards the tropical side of thing, but you do get a more kind of pungent citrusy zest from the orange the further into the aftertaste that you go. But yeah, overall, I really like how this one goes about its business. It is pretty damn nice, so it gets a big thumbs up from me in that sense. Another solid one from Gamma Brewing, but we've gotten used to this over the years. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Gamma Brewing Company. We will no doubt return to these guys again sometime soon. In the meantime, check out my social media, check out theirs. This one was the Radial, an 8.2% New England double IPA from Gamma Brewing Company in Herlev in the northwest of Copenhagen in Denmark. Slange, skål, cheers, check out this brewery, and I'll see you guys on the next one.